After my husband kicked me out, I used my mother's old card. The bank panicked. I was shocked when the rain hammered against the motel window like 1,000 angry fists, each drop a reminder of how far I had fallen. 24 hours ago, I had been Mrs. Catherine Hayes, living in a 5-bedroom colonial in Westchester County with heated bathroom floors and a sub-zero refrigerator that cost more than most people's cars. Now I was just Kat, clutching a duffel bag stuffed with whatever clothes I could grab in 10 minutes, and my mother's old purse in a $40 a night room that smelled of cigarettes, mildew, and broken dreams. My phone buzzed for the 15th time. Another message from Derek. I didn't need to read it. The first 10 had made his position crystal clear. I was out. Finished. Done. He had the locks changed before I even made it back from my sister's house, the lawyer on speed dial, and apparently a 23-year-old yoga instructor named Sienna waiting in the wings. Sienna. Even her name sounded young and flexible and everything I wasn't anymore. 38 years of life, 12 years of marriage, and this is where it ended. In a motel where the HBO didn't work and the ice machine down the hall groaned like a dying animal. I opened my mother's purse with trembling hands, the leather cracked and worn from decades of use. Mom had died 3 years ago, or so I thought, and I'd kept it in the back of my closet, unable to part with it. It still smelled faintly of her perfume, that cheap drugstore brand she wore because she said expensive perfume was a waste of money. Inside, I found the usual remnants of her life, old receipts from grocery stores that no longer existed, a tube of coral lipstick worn down to a nub, breath mints that had probably turned to dust, a small pack of tissues, and tucked in the inner pocket, a credit card I'd never noticed before. Chase Sapphire Reserve. The card was heavy, metallic, and had her name embossed on it in raised letters. Eleanor Whitmore. My mother, who drove a 12-year-old Honda Civic with a dented bumper and clipped coupons religiously, had a premium credit card? If you've ever felt rock bottom, stay with me. This story is about to take a turn nobody saw coming, not even me. My stomach growled so loudly I could hear it over the rain. I hadn't eaten since yesterday morning when Derek had served me with papers over breakfast. Very civilized. Very Derek. He'd even made fresh coffee and set out my favorite mug, the one that said "World's Best Wife" that I'd bought as a joke on our anniversary 5 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. The motel vending machine in the hallway was broken, its front glass cracked and several buttons missing. A handwritten sign taped to it read, "Out of order, sorry," with a sad face drawn in marker. I had exactly $43 in cash to my name. Derek had frozen our joint accounts within an hour of kicking me out. When I tried to use my debit card at a gas station, it had been declined. The humiliation of that moment, standing there while people in line behind me sighed and checked their watches, still burned. I stared at my mother's card, turning it over in my hands. It had to be expired. Mom had been a public school teacher her entire life, living modestly in a small apartment in Queens, saving carefully, shopping at discount stores. This card had probably been maxed out paying for her cancer treatments, and I'd just never gotten around to canceling it. I'd meant to go through her things properly, to organize and sort and decide what to keep, but life had gotten in the way. Work projects, Derek's cases, the endless trying to be the perfect wife. But I was hungry and desperate and alone, and what was the worst that could happen? It would decline, the waitress would give me a pitying look, and I'd skip dinner. Again. I'd survived on gas station coffee and stale crackers today. What was one more night? The diner across the street had a neon sign that flickered between open and open, the N having given up the ghost long ago. The rain had lightened to a drizzle, and I could see people inside through the steamed-up windows. Normal people. People with normal lives who weren't sleeping in motels and using dead relatives' credit cards. Good enough. I grabbed my jacket, the cheap one from Target, not the designer coat still hanging in the closet of a house I could no longer enter, and ran through the rain, dodging puddles that reflected the streetlights like portals to somewhere better than here. The bell above the door chimed as I entered. The diner was warm, smelling of coffee and fried food and home. A few truckers sat at the counter, and an elderly couple shared a booth in the corner, holding hands across the table. I felt a pang of longing so sharp it physically hurt. The waitress, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes, tired feet, and a name tag that read Dolores, handed me a laminated menu sticky with decades of use. "Coffee, hun?" "Please, yes, thank you." My voice came out scratchy. I hadn't spoken to anyone all day. "Long day?" "Long life, son," I said, trying to smile. She nodded like she understood everything in those two words, and maybe she did. "Take your time with the menu. Though if you ask me, the meatloaf's the best thing we got. Comes with mashed potatoes and green beans. Real comfort food." Comfort. When was the last time I'd felt that? "I'll have the meatloaf special." "Good choice, sweetheart." I sat in the booth, warming my hands on the coffee mug, watching the rain pick up again outside. My phone buzzed. Derek again. I turned it face down on the table. The meatloaf came quickly, steaming and smothered in brown gravy. It looked like something my mother used to make on Sunday nights before she got sick, before everything changed. I ate slowly, making it last, because I didn't know when I'd eat again. When Dolores brought the check, my hands trembled as I handed her mom's card. The waitress ran it through the old card reader, the kind that made that distinctive grinding sound that seemed to go on forever. I held my breath, preparing for the inevitable rejection. Approved. The word on the receipt felt like a miracle. "Thank you," Dolores said, handing me back the card. "You have a good night now. Things will look better in the morning." I wanted to believe her. Thanks for the kindness. We all need a little kindness sometimes. Relief flooded through me as I walked back to the motel, the card clutched in my hand. Thank you, Mom. Even from beyond the grave, she was still taking care of me. I'd pay the bill off as soon as I got back on my feet. Once I figured out how to do that with no job, I'd quit my graphic design freelancing to support Derek's career, no money, and a husband determined to destroy me in court. Back in the motel room, I tried to sleep but couldn't. The people in the room next door were arguing, their voices rising and falling through the paper-thin walls. The ceiling had a water stain shaped like a dragon, and I found myself staring at it for hours, replaying my marriage in reverse. Where had it gone wrong? When Derek made partner at his firm and started working until midnight? When we stopped trying for the baby that never came after 3 years of negative tests and doctor visits? When I gave up my own career in graphic design to support his climb up the corporate ladder, to host his firm's dinner parties, to be the perfect accessory? When had I stopped being Catherine and become just Mrs. Hayes? My phone rang at 2:17 in the morning. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Hello? Is this Catherine Hayes?" A man's voice, professional but urgent, with an edge that made my heart rate spike. "Yes, who is this?" "This is Robert Chen from Chase Bank Fraud Prevention. Ma'am, I need you to answer some questions about a card you used tonight." My heart sank like a stone. Of course. The card was flagged. Probably reported stolen years ago when Mom died. I was going to be arrested for credit card fraud on top of everything else. I can explain. That was my mother's card. She passed away 3 years ago and Ma'am, I need you to listen very carefully. His voice dropped lower, more intense. "Where are you right now? What's your exact location?" "I'm at the Riverside Motel in White Plains. Room 14. "Why? What's going on?" "What's the address?" I told him, my pulse quickening, palms starting to sweat. "Am I in trouble? I didn't mean to." "Mrs. Hayes, don't leave that room. Don't use that card again. And don't tell anyone at all, that you have it. Do you understand me?" "No, I don't understand any of this. What's happening? Why?" "A security team is being dispatched to your location. They'll be there within the hour. Lock your door. Don't open it for anyone except federal agents with proper identification. This is a matter of national security." "National security? My mother was a 4th-grade teacher. She taught kids to read. The line went dead. I sat frozen on the edge of the bed, the phone still pressed to my ear, my mind racing. National security. My mother was a 4th-grade teacher who drove a 12-year-old Honda and clipped coupons from the Sunday paper. She volunteered at the library. She made cookies for the school bake sale. What kind of joke was this? But the man had known my name, known exactly where I'd used the card, known I was in room 14. With shaking hands, I dumped Mom's purse onto the faded floral bedspread. Out fell the receipts, the lipstick, a pack of tissues, loose change that rolled onto the floor, and something else. Something I'd never seen before. A small brass key, no bigger than my pinky, with a number stamped on it in tiny numbers. 847. My hands were shaking now, trembling so badly I almost dropped the key. I examined the credit card more closely under the harsh bathroom light. It looked normal, legitimate. Eleanor Whitmore. Valid through 03/28. Wait, I did the math. That was next year. March of next year. The card wasn't expired, it was current, active. But Mom had died 3 years ago. I'd watched them lower her casket into the ground. I'd thrown dirt on top of it. The sound of earth hitting wood, something I'd never forget. I'd cleaned out her apartment, donated her clothes to Goodwill, kept only a few precious items. Who had been paying this credit card bill for 3 years? A knock at the door made me jump so hard I bit my tongue. I tasted blood. I checked my phone. Only 20 minutes had passed since the call. Mrs. Hayes, federal agents. We need you to open the door. I crept to the peephole, my heart hammering. 2 people in dark suits stood outside. A man and a woman, both holding badges up to the viewer. FBI. The gold shield looked real, but how would I know? I'd never seen a real FBI badge before. This couldn't be real. I was asleep. This was a stress dream, a nightmare brought on by trauma and hunger and exhaustion. Any moment now, I'd wake up. Mrs. Hayes, we know you're frightened, but we need you to cooperate. Look at the badges. Special Agent Monica Fields and Special Agent Tom Brennan. We're here to help you. I opened the door with the chains still on. The woman stepped forward first, her eyes sweeping the room with practiced efficiency. She was in her 40s, black, with silver streaks in her hair, pulled back in a tight bun, and eyes that had seen too much. I'm Special Agent Monica Fields. This is Special Agent Tom Brennan. May we come in? I removed the chain with numb fingers. They entered, and Agent Brennan immediately checked the bathroom, the closet, under the bed. Looking for threats. Looking for what? Agent Fields' eyes landed on the card, and keys spread out on the bed. Something flickered across her face. Recognition. And maybe relief. You used your mother's credit card tonight, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't know it was. I just needed to eat, and I thought, Mrs. Hayes, your mother didn't die of cancer 3 years ago. The room tilted. I reached for the bed to steady myself, my legs suddenly unable to hold me up. The world became very small and very focused, like looking through a tunnel. What? Agent Fields sat down beside me, her voice gentle but firm. Eleanor Whitmore entered the Federal Witness Protection Program 15 years ago. She was instrumental in bringing down a major organized crime network operating out of New Jersey and New York. The person who died 3 years ago, the woman whose funeral you attended, was someone else. Your mother's still alive. The words made no sense. They were English, but they didn't connect to anything real, like someone speaking underwater or in a dream. That's impossible. I went to her funeral. I held her hand in the hospital. I watched her die. My voice cracked, broke. I buried her. I mourned her. I missed her every single day for 3 years. You buried someone the U.S. Marshals provided as part of the cover story. I'm sorry, I know this is difficult to hear. Difficult didn't begin to cover it. My entire reality was fracturing, pieces of my life rearranging themselves into a picture I didn't recognize. Why? Why would you do that to me? To her? Agent Brennan spoke up, his voice gravelly, weathered. Your mother's testimony put 8 men in federal prison, including Vincent Castellano, head of the Castellano crime family. Dangerous men, connected men, men with resources and long memories. But 2 weeks ago, Castellano was released on a technicality. His lawyer found a procedural error in the original trial. And 3 days ago, your mother disappeared from her protected location in Arizona. Arizona? I whispered. She was in Arizona? She was safe. We had her in a small town, new identity, new life. But when Castellano got out, she ran. She didn't trust the system anymore. Can't say I blame her. Agent Fields pulled out her phone, showed me a photo, A woman in her 60s with gray hair and reading glasses, sitting on a porch somewhere, sunny, older, different, but unmistakably my mother. I started crying then, really crying, years of grief pouring out of me. The card you used tonight pinged our system because it's been flagged for years, Agent Fields continued softly. We've been hoping that if your mother ever broke protocol, if she ever reached out, she'd use something connected to you. That card is the only link we have to finding her before the Castellanos do. Why didn't she tell me? My voice was barely a whisper. Why would she let me think she was dead? How could she do that to me? Because it was safer for you. The Castellanos have long memories and longer reach. If they knew you existed, if they knew Eleanor had a daughter, they would have used you to get to her, to force her to recant her testimony, or worse. I thought of Derek, of the divorce, of the life I thought I'd lost. Suddenly, sleeping in a motel didn't seem like the worst thing in the world. The key, Agent Field said, nodding at the bed. May I? She picked it up, examined it under the light, turned it over. Safe deposit box. Do you know which bank? I shook my head, still trying to process everything. My mother was alive. Alive. Somewhere. We'll figure it out. Mrs. Hayes, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Has anyone followed you recently, approached you, asked questions about your mother? Anything unusual, even if it seemed minor? No, I don't think so. I've been dealing with my divorce. My husband kicked me out yesterday, and I've been... Your husband, Agent Brennan's tone sharpened, became alert. Derek Hayes, investment banker at Morrison & Associates, married 12 years, no children, currently having an affair with a personal trainer named Sienna Ford. Yoga instructor, I corrected automatically. How do you know all that? We know everything about you, Mrs. Hayes. We've had your mother's file flagged for years. When did the affair start? I don't know exactly. I found out 2 months ago when I saw a text on his phone, but it could have been going on longer. Maybe 6 months? Maybe more? The humiliation of it still stung. The two agents exchanged a glance, a meaningful look that made my stomach clench. What? I asked. What was that look? Agent Fields sat down on the bed beside me, her expression serious. Mrs. Hayes, in our line of work, in cases like this, there are very few coincidences. Your husband suddenly starts an affair after years of marriage, becomes hostile, kicks you out, freezes your assets, makes you desperate and vulnerable. All of this happening within weeks of Vincent Castellanos' release from federal prison. The implication hit me like ice water dumped over my head. No, Derek doesn't know anything about my mother. He never met her. She died. I thought she died. Years into our marriage. He's a corporate lawyer, not a criminal. He's just a selfish bastard having a midlife crisis, not some kind of mob plant. Did she, though? Did she die years into your marriage? Or did she disappear right around the time your relationship with Derek started getting serious? I counted backward in my head, something I'd never thought to do before. Mom had supposedly died. No, had gone into witness protection 15 years ago. Derek and I met 14 years ago at a charity fundraiser his firm was sponsoring. I'd been doing the graphic design for the event. We dated for 2 years before getting married. Oh, God. You think Derek was planted? That our entire relationship was fake? That he was working for the Castellanos this whole time? We don't know for certain, Agent Brennan said, but we're going to find out. What we do know is that you're not safe here. We need to get you into protective custody until we locate your mother and neutralize the threat. I'm not going anywhere until you tell me everything. Who was my mother, really? What did she actually do? What did she see? Agent Fields sighed, ran a hand over her face. She looked tired, like she'd been doing this job too long. Your mother witnessed a murder. She was working as a private tutor for Vincent Castellanos' nephew, helping the kid with math because he was failing school. One night 15 years ago, she came to the Castellano house unannounced for an emergency tutoring session before a big test. She walked in on Vincent and 3 of his men killing a federal informant in the basement. She saw everything, the torture, the murder, the disposal plan. She managed to get out without being seen, drove straight to the nearest police station, and called the FBI. And she testified? She wore a wire to her next tutoring session. Got Vincent on tape talking about the murder, about other crimes. Her testimony, combined with the recordings, put 8 men away for life. Or what should have been life. But why fake her death? Why not just keep her in witness protection like normal? Because 6 months into her protection, 3 U.S. Marshals assigned to her detail were killed in a coordinated attack. Car bomb. Someone inside had leaked her location. We realized we couldn't trust anyone. We had to make everyone, including you, believe she was gone. It was the only way to keep her alive. To keep you alive. Tears burned my eyes again, but I refused to let them fall this time. Where is she now? Do you have any idea? We don't know, but that key might tell us. And we need to find her fast, because if the Castellanos get to her first... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. We spent the next 4 hours hitting every bank in a 50-mile radius. Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citibank, TD Bank, Capital One. Nothing. The key didn't match any of their safety deposit box systems. Some banks had converted to digital systems. Others used different key sizes. As dawn broke over White Plains, we sat in Agent Field's black SUV in a parking lot, drinking terrible coffee from a 24-hour gas station where the clerk barely looked up from his phone. There's one more possibility, Agent Brennan said, scrolling through something on his tablet. Old-school banks, the kind that have been around for 70, 80 years and still use physical keys. Family-owned, old-fashioned. How many of those can there still be? In this area, maybe a dozen. But there's one your mother would have known about. Hudson Valley Trust in Yonkers. It's been there since the 40s. Her great-aunt used to work there as a teller. We found it just as the sun was fully up, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that seemed obscene given the circumstances. Hudson Valley Trust was a small brick building wedged between a pawn shop with barred windows and a Vietnamese restaurant that wasn't open yet. The bank looked like something from another era, with old-fashioned gold lettering on the window and an actual revolving door. The bank didn't open until 9, so we waited. I tried calling Derek 3 times, my finger hovering over his name in my contacts. He didn't answer any of them. I told myself it was because of the early hour. I told myself a lot of things that morning to avoid facing the truth that might be waiting for me. At 9:05, we were inside. The interior was all dark wood and brass fixtures, with teller windows that still had those old-fashioned bars. An elderly security guard nodded at us from his station by the door. The bank manager, a nervous man in his 60s with thinning hair and sweat stains under his arms despite the air conditioning, took the key with shaking hands once Agent Fields flashed her badge and told him this was a matter of national security. Box 847, he confirmed, his voice trembling slightly. This way. Follow me, please. The vault smelled like old paper and metal and secrets kept too long. The box was small, maybe 8 inches by 10. The manager opened it with his master key and my key, the twin locks clicking in sequence, then left us alone with a promise of complete discretion. Inside was a burner phone, a passport with my mother's photo, but a different name, Maria Gonzalez, and a letter addressed to me in her handwriting. That handwriting I knew so well, that had written birthday cards and school permission slips and grocery lists. My dearest Catherine, if you're reading this, I'm either dead or in terrible danger. Either way, I'm sorry. I'm so deeply, terribly sorry. I'm sorry for the lies. I'm sorry for missing 12 years of your life. I'm sorry I couldn't be at your wedding, couldn't be there when you needed me, couldn't be the mother you deserved. But I need you to know the truth about who I really was. I didn't just witness a murder, baby. I was part of the organization. I was Vincent Castellanos' accountant for 7 years before I became his nephew's tutor. I kept his books. I laundered his money. I knew where every body was buried, literally and figuratively. I knew about the drug operations, the protection rackets, the illegal gambling, the money laundering schemes, the politicians on the payroll. I was complicit in all of it. When I saw them kill Marco, I knew I was next. Vincent was cleaning house, getting rid of anyone who knew too much. Marco had been his accountant before me. I was scheduled to be at that meeting. I would have been in that basement. But I came early for the tutoring session instead, and I saw everything. So I made a deal with the FBI. Full testimony, all the records I'd secretly copied over the years. Everything I knew in exchange for protection and to keep you safe. But there's one more thing you need to know, and I'm sorry for this too. I'm sorry for all of it. The man you knew as your father, Robert Whitmore, the man who died when you were 5 years old, he wasn't your biological father. Your real father was Vincent Castellano. I was 23 when I started working for him. He was charismatic, powerful, and I was young and stupid and impressed by the money and the danger. By the time I realized what I'd gotten myself into, I was pregnant with you. I tried to leave. He threatened to kill me. So I stayed and pretended and planned. And when Robert offered me a way out, a marriage, legitimacy, a normal life, I took it. Robert knew you weren't his, but he loved you anyway. He was a good man, the only good man in my story until you came along. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry you had to learn this way. I left you everything you need to finish what I started. The phone has one number programmed. Call it only if you're in immediate danger. Trust no one else. The account information is in the phone under your birthday. Use it wisely. Use it to disappear if you need to. Use it to be safe. I love you more than you'll ever know. I loved you every single day I was away from you. You were the only good thing I ever did in my life. Stay safe, my darling girl. Mom. The letter slipped from my hands and fluttered to the concrete floor of the vault. Vincent Castellano was my father. The crime boss, the murderer, the monster who had killed people, ruined lives, terrorized entire neighborhoods. That man's blood ran in my veins. I thought I might throw up. Agent Fields picked up the letter, read it quickly, and swore softly under her breath. Jesus Christ. This changes everything, doesn't it? My voice sounded distant, disconnected from my body. Yes, she said quietly. It does. How? Because under Castellano family rules, traditional Sicilian mob code, blood matters above everything else. If Vincent knows you exist, if he knows you're his daughter, he'll either want to kill you to eliminate the threat or recruit you to rebuild his empire. Probably both, depending on how useful you prove to be. Does he know about me? We're about to find out. Agent Brennan had been examining the burner phone, his thick fingers surprisingly nimble with the small device. There's a text message. Came in 2 days ago. He held it out to me. The message was short, typed quickly. Brooklyn safe house compromised. They know about the daughter. I'm going dark. Can't trust the marshals. The account number is the birthday. Use it to stay safe. Love you forever. M. I whispered, my throat tight. Mom. She knew. She knew they were coming for me. The birthday, Agent Fields said urgently. Your birthday. When were you born? July 14th, 1987. 71487. Agent Brennan was already on his laptop, typing rapidly, his face illuminated by the blue glow of the screen. It's a bank account. Offshore, Cayman Islands. She set it up years ago, looks like. Balance is... He went completely pale, the color draining from his face. $37 million. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the safety deposit box to keep from falling. 37 million, Agent Fields breathed. She wasn't kidding about knowing where the money was. That's 37 million reasons the Castellanos want you dead, Agent Brennan said grimly. That money came from their operations. Your mother skimmed it over the years. Probably a little at a time so they wouldn't notice. It was her insurance policy in case the feds couldn't protect her, which, given that she's currently missing, turned out to be a smart move. My phone buzzed in my pocket, making me jump. A text from Derek. The first communication in hours. Kat, we need to talk. Come to the house, please. I made a terrible mistake. I love you. Let me explain. Don't respond, Agent Brennan said sharply, reading over my shoulder. It's a trap. But I was already typing, my fingers moving with a certainty I didn't quite understand. Coming now. 20 minutes. What are you doing? Agent Fields grabbed my phone, but the message was already sent. Setting a trap of my own. If Derek is working for them, he'll have them waiting for me. And you'll be waiting for them. That's insane. You're not trained for this. You're a graphic designer, not a field agent. No, I said, surprised by the steel in my own voice. But I'm motivated. They stole my mother's life. They made me mourn her for 3 years. They might have killed her. We still don't know if she's alive. And they used my marriage, my trust, my love as a weapon. I'm done being a victim. I'm done being protected. I want to fight back. Agent Fields stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something shift in her expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. Okay, but we do this my way. You wear a wire. You follow my instructions to the letter. And the absolute second, I give the signal, you get down and stay down. Understood? Understood. 2 hours later, after a crash course in wearing a wire and emergency signals and how to fall safely, I stood on my own front porch in Westchester County. The house I'd lived in for 8 years looked the same. The blue shutters I'd picked out, the flower boxes I'd planted with geraniums every spring, the welcome mat that said, "Home Sweet Home," in cheerful letters. The door was unlocked. I pushed it open slowly. Inside, Derek sat at our kitchen table, the one we'd picked out together at an antique store in Connecticut. But he wasn't alone. A man I'd never seen before stood by the window, backlit by the morning sun. Mid-60s, expensive charcoal suit that probably cost more than my car, silver hair perfectly styled. He looked like someone's benevolent grandfather, the kind who'd slip you at 20 and tell you to buy something nice, until you saw his eyes. Cold, calculating, merciless. "Catherine," he said, and his voice was surprisingly gentle. "Or should I say, Catherine Castellano? That has a nice ring to it, doesn't it?" Vincent Castellano, my biological father, the man whose DNA I carried, the monster. "I prefer Hayes," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady even though my heart was trying to beat its way out of my chest. "Actually, I prefer Whitmore. My real father was Robert Whitmore. You're just the sperm donor." He smiled, seemingly amused rather than offended. "You have your mother's fire. She was beautiful too. And smart, so smart, loyal, devoted, until she decided to betray me. She was protecting me and protecting herself from a murderer. She was stealing from me. $37 million to be precise. Money that belonged to my organization, my family, my legacy." He walked closer, and I had to fight every instinct not to back away. "But you know what? I'm willing to forgive and forget. I'm a reasonable man, because you're family. Blood matters, Catherine. It matters more than anything else in this world. You're my daughter, my only child, my heir. I'm nothing to you. On the contrary, you're everything. With your mother gone, and yes, she is gone, we found her yesterday morning in Tucson. That money reverts to you as her only heir. And with you at my side, we rebuild the empire. Bigger, better, smarter." My heart clenched at his words. Gone. Mom was gone. But I remembered Agent Fields' message. The photos. He was lying. He had to be lying. "You're a graphic designer, aren't you?" Vincent continued. "Talented with computers, with design, with making things look legitimate. You could be very useful in my operations. Money laundering, shell companies, legitimate businesses to hide the real work. You have skills I need, and I have resources you'll want once you understand how the world really works." Derek spoke up from his position at the table, his voice carrying that apologetic tone he'd perfected over 12 years of marriage. "Cat, just hear him out. Please. He's offering us everything we ever wanted. Money, security, power, a real life. We could travel, buy that house in the Hamptons you always wanted, start over." "How long?" I asked, looking at the man I'd shared a bed with for 12 years. "How long have you been working for him? Don't lie to me. Not anymore." "From the beginning," Vincent answered for him, his tone matter of fact. "I found out about you 10 years ago through an informant, someone in the Marshal Service who owed me a favor. They told me Eleanor Whitmore had a daughter, 28 years old at the time, living in Queens, working as a freelance graphic designer, single, vulnerable. I wasn't vulnerable, I was independent. Same thing in my world. I couldn't touch you while Eleanor was protected, while she was hidden away. But I could watch, plan, study you. And when I realized I might be released, when my lawyers found that procedural error and started working on my appeal, I had Derek here accelerate the timeline. I turned to Derek, this stranger wearing my husband's face. So what was the plan? Meet me at a charity event, sweep me off my feet, marry me, and what? Wait? Derek had the grace to look uncomfortable. I was supposed to get close to you, monitor you, report back on whether you had any contact with your mother. But then things got complicated. Complicated how? I fell in love with you, he said quietly. That wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. And for a while, I thought maybe I could have both. Keep you safe and keep Vincent satisfied with minimal information. But when he got released, when he started demanding results, I had to make a choice. And you chose him. I chose survival. If I didn't deliver you, he would have killed me. And you. And Sienna. So Sienna is real? The affair? Yes and no. She was part of the plan to isolate you, to make you vulnerable, to drive you to use that card we knew your mother had given you. But yes, the affair is real. I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I really am sorry. Vincent made an impatient gesture. Enough sentiment. Catherine, you need to understand your position. Your mother is dead. The FBI can't protect you. They couldn't even protect her. Your husband works for me. You have no money, no home, no job, no resources. But I'm offering you everything. A place in my organization. Respect, power, family. I'd rather die. His expression hardened, the grandfatherly facade cracking to reveal the monster beneath. That can be arranged, but it would be a waste. You're my blood, my daughter. Don't make me kill you. You're lying about my mother. She's alive. I know she is. Do you? Are you sure? Would you like to see the body? My hand moved to my pocket, where the wire was hidden. I touched it twice. The signal. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I'm walking out of here. You're going to let me. Because every single word you just said was recorded by the FBI, who are currently surrounding this house. Your man at the window has a sniper rifle trained on him from the house across the street. Derek's offshore accounts are being frozen as we speak. And that $37 million? It's going to be seized and distributed to the victims of your crimes. Vincent's face purpled with rage, veins standing out on his neck. You stupid, stupid girl. You think you can… Signal, I said loudly. The doors burst open, front, back, side. FBI agents flooded in like a black-clad wave, weapons drawn, voices shouting. Vincent reached for something in his jacket, but Agent Brennan was faster, his gun already out, already aimed. Vincent went down hard, his face hitting the antique table, cursing in Italian. Derek tried to run, jumping up from the table and heading for the back door. He made it exactly 3 feet before being tackled by 2 agents who seemed to come out of nowhere. And I stood in the kitchen where I'd made 1,000 breakfasts, where I'd celebrated anniversaries and more negative pregnancy tests and tried to be the perfect wife. And I felt nothing but relief that this chapter was finally, definitively over. Agent Fields appeared at my side. You did good. Is she really alive? My mother? Or was he telling the truth? She's alive. We found her this morning. She's safe. She wants to see you. The tears came then, relief and grief and joy all mixed together, until I couldn't tell them apart. 3 months later, I stood in a different kitchen, in a different house, in a different state that I couldn't name, even if I wanted to. The witness protection program wasn't glamorous. The house was small, the furniture was dated, the view was of a parking lot, but it was safe, and I wasn't alone. You take your coffee black now? Mom asked, sliding a mug across the laminate counter. She looked good. Older, yes, with more gray in her hair and deeper lines around her eyes. But alive, healthy, smiling, real. I've developed a lot of new habits lately, I said. I know this isn't the life you wanted, the life you should have had. It's the life I have. And honestly, it's better than the one I was living. That perfect house, that perfect marriage, it was all a lie. This is real. What about Derek, the trial? 25 years for racketeering, conspiracy, fraud, and about a dozen other charges. Vincent got life without parole. His entire organization is dismantled. 47 arrests total. Thanks to you, to us. Thanks to us, I agreed. She reached across and squeezed my hand, and I realized this was the first time I'd touched her in 3 years, since before her death. I missed you, she said, her voice breaking. Every single day, every hour. I would see mothers and daughters together, and it would break my heart all over again. I know. I missed you too. I used to talk to you sometimes after you died. Tell you about my day. Ask your advice. Feel like an idiot because you weren't there to answer. I was answering. You just couldn't hear me. So what now? I'm 38, in witness protection, with a new name and a new life to build from scratch. I smiled, feeling something like hope for the first time in months. Actually, I've been thinking about going back to school. The marshal said I could study remotely, take online classes. I was pretty good at graphic design once, before I gave it all up. You were better than good. You were talented. And maybe when this is all over and it's really truly safe, I'll open my own studio. Help other women rebuild their lives. Women like me who lost everything and had to start over. Mom's eyes shimmered with tears. She would be so proud of you. Who? The woman you're becoming. Stronger, fiercer, free. I looked out the window at the mountains in the distance, at the endless sky, at the future stretching out like an unmarked road with infinite possibilities. Yeah, I said, me too. 2 years later, my design studio, Phoenix Rising Designs, had 12 employees, all women rebuilding their lives after domestic violence, divorce, or other trauma. We specialized in branding for nonprofits and small businesses, organizations that were doing good in the world. The work was meaningful, the money was decent, not yacht money, but enough. And every morning I woke up knowing I was building something real, something mine. Mom lived 3 blocks away in a small bungalow with a garden where she grew tomatoes and basil. We had dinner every Sunday, a tradition we'd established from that first week of our reunited life. Sometimes we cooked together. Sometimes we ordered pizza and watched old movies. Sometimes we just sat in comfortable silence, making up for all the years of enforced separation. Derek was in federal prison in Pennsylvania. I'd received one letter from him, forwarded through the Marshal Service. I hadn't opened it. Some chapters needed to stay closed. Vincent Castellano died in his cell of a heart attack 8 months into his sentence. At least that was the official story. Agent Fields had looked at me funny when she told me, like she expected me to feel something. But I didn't. You can't mourn someone who was only ever a monster to you. And me? Catherine Monroe, my new name, chosen because Eleanor and Robert used to joke about taking a trip to Marilyn Monroe's star in Hollywood, was building a life that felt authentic for the first time ever. I dated occasionally, cautiously, a nice teacher named Marcus who didn't ask too many questions about my past, a bookstore owner named Jennifer who made me laugh. Nothing serious. Trust didn't come easy anymore, and maybe it never would, but I was learning to be okay with that. The $37 million had been seized by the federal government and distributed to a victims fund. I kept one thing from that safe deposit box, my mother's letter. I read it sometimes when I needed to remember who I was and where I came from. When I needed to remember that survival was its own kind of victory. The doorbell rang, pulling me from my thoughts. A delivery. I signed for the package, always slightly nervous about unexpected packages even now, and opened it at my kitchen table. Inside was a simple card with familiar handwriting. You did good, kid. Really good. Stay safe. Stay smart. The world needs more women like you. MF, Agent Monica Fields. We'd stayed in touch, occasional emails and the rare card. She'd been promoted to a task force on organized crime, taking down operations that preyed on the vulnerable. Beneath the card was a newspaper clipping, already yellowing at the edges. Last members of Castellano crime family, convicted in federal trial, organization deemed completely dismantled. It was really over. The empire that Vincent Castellano had built through violence and fear, that had controlled my mother's life for decades, that had shaped my existence even when I didn't know it existed. It was gone. Finished. I made myself a cup of coffee, still black, a taste I'd developed in those desperate early days and somehow kept, and sat by the window watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple. My phone buzzed. A new client inquiry through the website. A woman's shelter in Denver needed a complete branding package. Logo, letterhead, website, social media presence. They had a tiny budget but a big mission, helping women escape domestic violence. I typed my response. I'd be honored to help. This kind of work is exactly why I started my business. Let's set up a call for tomorrow. First consultation is always free. This was my life now. Small moments of connection, meaningful work that helped people, safety, family, truth. It wasn't the life I'd planned at 26 when I married Derek, dreaming of a conventional future with kids and soccer games and PTA meetings. It was better, because it was mine, built from the ashes of everything I'd lost, brick by brick, choice by choice, stronger and truer than anything that came before. I thought about that night in the Riverside Motel, desperate and alone, hungry and hopeless, using my supposedly dead mother's credit card to buy a meatloaf dinner because I had $43 to my name. If someone had told me then that the card would lead to federal agents and mob bosses and offshore accounts and the revelation that my mother was alive and my father was a criminal and my marriage was a lie, I would have laughed, or cried, or both. If they'd told me it would also lead to freedom, purpose, meaningful work, and a second chance at everything, I might have had trouble believing it. But here I was, living proof that rock bottom isn't always the end of the story. Sometimes it's just the beginning. 5 years after that rainy night in White Plains, I stood in front of a room full of women at a domestic violence shelter, sharing my story. Not all of it. The witness protection details stayed private. The mob connections stayed vague. But the heart of it, the truth of starting over with nothing. I thought I'd lost everything, I told the 23 women watching me with recognition in their eyes. My marriage, my home, my sense of identity. I slept in a $40 motel and used my dead mother's credit card to buy dinner because I was that desperate. I'd never felt more alone in my entire life. A young woman in the back, couldn't have been more than 22, raised her hand. How did you start over with literally nothing? That's the thing. I didn't have nothing. I just couldn't see what I had. I had my mother, even though I didn't know she was alive yet. I had federal agents who believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. I had strength I didn't know I possessed. And most importantly, I had the willingness to take the first step, even when I couldn't see the whole path. What was your first step? I smiled, remembering Dolores the waitress with her kind eyes and tired feet. The meatloaf special that had somehow changed everything. I used a credit card to buy dinner. I fed myself when I was hungry. I took care of my basic needs. Everything else followed from that one small act of faith in the future. After the talk, several women approached me, shy and hesitant and hurting. They shared their stories, the abuse that left no visible scars, the fear that kept them awake at night, the uncertainty about whether they could make it on their own. Each story was different. Each story was the same. I gave each of them my card, Phoenix Rising Designs, with a logo of a bird emerging from flames. When I gave each of them my card, Phoenix Rising Designs, with a logo of a bird emerging from flames. When you're ready to build something new, call me, I said to each woman, when you're ready to rise from whatever ashes you're standing in. We'll figure it out together. Maybe you need a resume designed, or help with a small business idea, or just someone who understands. Whatever it is, reach out. One woman, probably in her early 30s with a fading bruise on her cheekbone poorly hidden under makeup, clutched the card like a lifeline. Did you really start over with nothing? Less than nothing, I told her honestly. I had debt I didn't know about, a husband who'd betrayed me, and exactly $43. But I had something more important than money. What? The decision to survive. To not let what happened to me define what happens next. That's all you need to start. The rest comes one day at a time. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. Thank you. Thank you for being brave enough to be here. That's the hardest part. Driving home that evening, I called Mom as I always did after these speaking engagements. How'd it go? She asked, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Good. Really good. Hard, but good. I think we helped some people today. That's my girl. You know, I'm so proud of who you've become. Stronger than I ever was. You survived witness protection for 12 years, Mom. You were plenty strong. Surviving isn't the same as living. You're doing both. That's the difference. Dinner Sunday. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Love you, baby. Love you too. Mom. I hung up and turned on the radio. Some pop song I didn't recognize played. Something about rising from ruins and dancing in the rain. The lyrics felt oddly appropriate. I turned it up and rolled down the windows, letting the evening air whip through my hair as I drove through the city that had become my new home. A city whose name I still couldn't tell anyone from my old life, in a state that didn't exist on my old maps. Somewhere behind me was Derek in a federal prison, Vincent Castellano in the ground, and the woman I used to be, small, scared, living a lie she didn't even know was a lie. Somewhere ahead was tomorrow, and the next day and all the days after that. Uncertain, yes. Challenging, absolutely. But mine. Completely, authentically mine. And for the first time in my 38 years, no, 43 years now, time had kept moving. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything. I thought about that terrified woman in the motel room, holding a dead woman's credit card, wondering if she'd even be able to afford dinner. If I could go back and tell her anything, what would I say? Maybe this. The card isn't magic. The money isn't real power. What matters is the choice you're about to make. To use it. To take that first step. To feed yourself when you're hungry. Everything that comes after, all the chaos and revelation and pain and ultimate freedom, starts with that one small act of self-preservation. Keep going. Even when you don't know where you're going. Even when the path is invisible. Especially then. Because the woman you're going to become is worth meeting. I pulled into my apartment complex, a modest building with a community garden where I'd started growing herbs, and saw Marcus sitting on my front steps with takeout bags from the Thai place I loved. "Thought you might be hungry after your talk," he said, standing up with that easy smile that had first caught my attention 6 months ago. "You're a mind reader." "I'm a lucky guesser. Plus, you mentioned this morning you probably wouldn't have time to eat." We sat on my small balcony, eating pad thai and spring rolls, watching the sun set over the mountains. He told me about his day teaching 8th graders who thought Shakespeare was mid, and I told him about the women at the shelter, their courage and fear and hope all mixed together. "You're good at this," he said, "helping people, giving them hope. I just tell them the truth, that it gets better, that they're stronger than they think. That is the truth. You're proof of it." Later, after he left, we were taking things slow, which suited us both. I stood at my window and looked out at my small corner of the world. The apartment wasn't fancy. The furniture was secondhand. The view was ordinary, but it was mine, built by my choices, sustained by my work, filled with people I'd chosen to let in. I opened my laptop and checked my business email. 3 new client inquiries, 2 from nonprofits, 1 from a woman starting a bakery after leaving an abusive marriage. All of them projects I'd love to take on. Tomorrow I'd respond to them. Tomorrow I'd start new work that would help new people. Tomorrow I'd have coffee with Mom and maybe go for a hike in the mountains we could now see from our new lives. But tonight, I just stood at my window and felt the enormity of being alive, being free, being myself. 5 years ago, I'd used a credit card in a diner and accidentally triggered a chain of events that dismantled a crime empire, reunited me with my supposedly dead mother, and destroyed my entire life, and then rebuilt it into something true. If someone asked me now whether I'd do it all again, knowing the pain, the fear, the revelations about my father and my husband and my entire history, I'd say yes without hesitation, because the woman standing at this window tonight, Catherine Monroe, designer and speaker and survivor, is someone worth being. The woman who was Mrs. Derek Hayes, living in perfect denial in Westchester County, was just a character in someone else's story. I'm the author now, and the next chapter is going to be beautiful. I picked up my phone and opened the Notes app where I'd been journaling sporadically. I typed, 5 years ago today, I used a credit card that changed my life. I thought I was just buying dinner. I was actually buying freedom. Note to self, sometimes salvation comes in the smallest packages. Sometimes the end is really the beginning. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find yourself. And sometimes, just sometimes, the universe gives you exactly what you need disguised as the worst day of your life. Here's to 5 more years of rising. Here's to the phoenix. Here's to becoming. I saved it, closed the app, and went to bed in my small, safe, honest life. Outside, the stars came out one by one, witnessing another day survived, another step forward, another woman rising from the ashes of who she used to be. And somewhere in the universe, I like to think my mother was looking at the same stars, thinking the same thoughts, grateful for the credit card that brought us back to each other, grateful for second chances, grateful for everything that had to burn down so something better could rise.